An established leader and influencer in the pharmaceutical industry, Divya has been in the industry for more than 21 years, working with companies such as Capgemini, Johnson & Johnson, Novo Nordisk, and Sun Pharma. She is a seasoned speaker, chairperson on various pharma forums and conferences, and the host for Woman to Woman podcast series to provide women professionals and executives with support and guidance. She has extensive experience in strategy development and pharmaceutical product launches within diabetes, obesity, oncology, dermatology, biologics, and ophthalmology therapeutic areas. With more than 30 global product launches, she has a passion for operational aspects of mission-critical projects that maximize portfolio and have a positive impact on patients' lives. Welcome, Divya Yerraguntla, VP of Asset Strategy at Syneos Health.
Hi everybody, this is Tim Fraser from Forsys, and I'm here tonight and today with Divya Yerraguntla. She's the VP of Asset Strategy at Syneos Health, and she's here with you today to talk about the International Women's Day Celebration 2022. As we all know, as if you've looked online, it is all about breaking the bias. So good evening and good day, Divya. Please introduce yourself and tell us a little about your background and why this topic is relevant to you.
Thanks, Tim. I am so honored to be here on this International Women's Day, and I really am very connected to this topic this year, break the bias. I've been in pharma for 25 years, and along the way, at one point you realize you have to give back. And when I started all of these different mentoring programs, the one thing I realized mentoring women was very different than mentoring men. We have a lot of perceptions about ourselves, we have a lot of self-doubt, we have a different mindset than men do. And that was such a stark difference that I decided to actually start a podcast. So I have a podcast called Woman to Woman, where I interview a lot of women leaders and we talk about their journeys, their challenges, and how they overcame those challenges. And this is really to pave the path forward for all these women who are trying to, come up in their career, who are much younger, coming out of college and schools. And that's really the aim of the podcast as well. So this topic related to women and our challenges as women and how we can really be successful by making a few shifts in our attitudes, our behaviors, mindsets, and really learn from each other and help each other succeed is very, very close to my heart. So I'm really excited to be here talking about this topic today.
Well, fantastic. Well, thank you for the day and the evening. I want to double click on a few of your topics you mentioned about behaviors and attitudes. Can you tell me more about how do you classify sort of the behavioral challenges? Let's just bring the umbrella in. The women's behavior, and then we'll talk about men's in a minute. Let's talk about what are the observations you've had with all the women you work with that you see as a common theme that is behavior driven.
That's a great question. I'll actually take a step back. Our perceptions are a mental makeup based on everything that has happened before us. And it's a fact, until World War II, women were not a significant population in the workforce. They did equally important jobs, but really at home, and it was really considered a man's job to earn the bread, put the bread for the household. So when women started working in the workforce, their jobs were considered more of a residual income. It's a nice to have, and sometimes women even felt privileged to be working, earning money, which in turn made them very thankful. And I think over the years, we have really come out of that shell and we really realize our value, our potential as part of the entire workforce. But I think really the mindset was set back then, and it's been a long way coming, but we haven't really broken that self-bias ourselves, because we feel that, women are considered the images of tolerance, patience, caring, giving, and really we don't want to step out of that character. And sometimes it's so hard, and sometimes to our own detriment, we just don't ask for what we deserve. Sometimes because we feel it's not polite, sometimes we feel we may not even deserve it yet because we have very high standards. Women are perfectionists, as you know. So we want to be at our top before asking for whatever we deserve. We fear rejection quite a bit, and we don't want to be tagged as greedy, So we tend to get a lot defensive And those kind of behaviors really don't help us in workplace. So I think these are some of the things that we really need to work and start looking at and say, how can I change that? How can I change my mindset? We have, there are two mindsets. There is a Spanish mindset, which is, there are limited quantity of things and you fight for those. And there's the English mindset. Its resources are unlimited. You just help each other get more out of any situation. And I think women more have the Spanish mindset. And how do we change that? To say there are not limited seats at the table for women. We can expand that seating. We can say there's not just 2 women that can be on the seat. They can be 4, they can be 5. We just need to help each other get there. I think that will take us a long way.
Thank you very much for that. So do you think that some of these mindsets are culturally influenced or geographically, culturally, or even socially influenced? And how do you see us breaking through these mindsets? It's understandable that some of them are ingrained in our thought process and our belief systems. So what's your tricks about, that maybe things that you feel like can be modified, and how do you start? I mean, what can you do to act on change?
So the first thing, I think the biggest bias I have seen being a manager, I started my career way back when, right? 25 years ago. So my work history has been in US, but my mom used to work in India. So growing up, I have seen her being part of the Indian workforce, very culturally very different. One Western world, one Asian world. I think one of the things and the bias is maybe a little bit more in Asia than in Western world, is the fact that women don't take their work seriously. And that might be because women tend to take more time off for family reasons than men do. And for some reason, this really establishes the fact that, okay, they will take off whenever their family needs them. One of the things we need to do is maybe understand that there's no Nobel Prize for a superwoman. You can do everything. You don't have to do everything. You need to ask for help. You need to say, this is how much I can do on the family front. This is how much I can do at the job front. And then compromise wherever required. Because women tend to think that they have to be perfect at work. They have to be perfect at home. We need to leave this image of ourselves in our mind to say we have to be perfect at everything. It's okay to say, I can only do so much and I'm going to seek help. And having that support system, whether it is at work, whether it is at home, will really help us break that bias that we don't take anything seriously. We do take everything very seriously. I think we need to lighten up. We need to take ourselves a little bit less serious and try to have fun in whatever we are doing, whether it's work, make friends, whether it's home, ask your spouse for help or hire somebody to help you, but find that support system, have that support system so that you're not trying to do everything yourself. That's the first one. And I think the other bias, and this is a metric I had read, I think in Economist early last year, the fact that only 7% of urban Indian women have paid employment. And that was a staggering fact because I did not think the number was so low. Because in US, at the end of 2020, they did some statistics and it was 55.9% of women make up the workforce. And there is strength in numbers, Right. So one of the bias is that women are good at doing detail-oriented tasks. And I think we have to break that bias because you know what? It keeps us way down in the ladders. It does not let you go up because you're always doing administrative work. You're always doing note-taking in meetings. I think we need to say, no, we may be detail-oriented, but somebody else needs to start developing that skill. It should not be left to the women folks. Like, how many times have you noticed in the administrative staff pool, how many men versus how many women? It's literally 90 to 10%. So why is it that the case? Because every time everybody says, oh, women are so detail-oriented, they can get things done. Well, you know what? They can also get things done at a much higher level. It's a case of, whether you're counting 1 rupee notes versus 100 rupee notes. I would much rather women be counting 100 rupee notes. It's the same skill set. But how are you really advancing your agenda? How are you pulling other women up by saying, this is a great skill. This kind of project management I need at this level too, not just at that lower level. So I think another bias that we can help each other with is to say, skills are important. It's not where you are sitting right now, but how can we translate those skills into much important roles, or maybe more significant roles, visible roles in organizations?
Sure. You triggered a few things that I really close to my heart. First of all, I really want to double click and say hurrah to the fact that you're asking the women who are listening to really ask for help. Family situation, which not all women relationships include spouses and stuff, but wherever you can ask for help, and especially if you do have help at home with the spouse, raise the bar, because us men need to have that. I mean, come on, think about it. It's like the women have to do all the thinking at home and then tell the husbands what to do. Take advantage of that. Use that to just get some help back, because I mean, somebody's got to cook the dinner. If the husband doesn't know how to cook the dinner while you got to be on a conference call and video calls, do it. And quite frankly, don't be afraid of letting the ball drop on the floor a couple of times and make it uncomfortable, because until you have those uncomforts, you're not going to break through anything, right? So if the dal and the curry on the stove gets burnt a little bit, you might get your husband's attention. So anyway, that's a personal message there to the men. Pay attention, because we're empowering the women here. And the second thing is, I want to empower the men, because I don't think this is all about the men just not being responsive. It really is, like you said, there's a social bias around the women's topics for generations. And there's a glass ceiling put there, and it's unnecessary, quite frankly. And unfortunately, we believe those things are true. They're not true. It's not about just women have better left and right brain connections, and you have more ability to process data than us. We process data in halves and we get it done as well. But it's really about your personality and knowing which your skills are best suited for and doing that, right? So how do you break that glass ceiling, and any tips and tools that would help us message our audience here to take advantage of your suggestions that you think work?
I think one of the things, you hit it on the nail. It is so important to have allies on the other side too. If men are part of the problem, they're also a huge part of the solution. To have a complete solution, you need to have a solution on both sides. How are women helping each other? But how are you seeking help from the other side? How are you making men your allies, your sponsors? How do you really make them part of your solution? And one of the things that I firmly believe is seek mentors on both sides. A lot of people come and say, oh, I've been looking for a mentor who's a woman. Great. But you know what? No. Sometimes to be successful in the society, you have to be successful with both of them, men and women. And we all think a certain way. Men think differently. And sometimes to understand how they think and how we can really communicate better, you need to have mentors who can tell you how they think, what their perspective is, and what they think you lack. And you need champions on both sides of the aisle. And one of the things I have to say is the most constructive feedback I've ever received has been from mentors who were men. Because they said, what are you thinking in this situation? And I would say, this is what I'm thinking. They're like, absolutely wrong. Like, why are you taking it so personally? This is not about you, this is the situation. And I discuss a lot of things with my husband too. I'm like, this is what they said. And he's like, they're absolutely right. Like, why would you think like that? And that really helped me develop myself as a leader, as somebody who's aspiring to be successful in career. It really helped me climb the ladder faster, because then I knew how other people think, and it's not just me. And I think that's one message I want to say for all the women. Like, don't be scared of failure. Because if you haven't failed, you haven't tried hard enough, which means you will not succeed fast enough. And take feedback. It's a gift. Don't take criticism personally. Actually talk to the people who are giving you any kind of feedback and say, hey, can you explain it more? Why do you think this is not right? And what did I say? And how can I make myself better? Because I've found those people become your informal mentors in a way. And it's so helpful to have them on your side, because now they have a vested interest in your success, because they've helped you identify a point where you can improve yourself. So that's extremely important. So I think having men on your side helps. So it's a equation game. You need both sides of the equation.
We need balance in our lives, and that stems from seeing things from both perspective. And honestly, as a leader in an organization, I'll speak to the leader view on this as well, because you have staff and you have team members. Be prepared to know how to handle emotional discussions, because not every discussion that looks it's emotional is actually an emotional discussion. It just happens to be a conversation with emotion. Don't think of it. It's a breakdown. It is absolutely, and use the emotion as a feeling to drive behavior, because it's really about understanding how and what the situation is, because you might get more out of your feelings than you'll actually get out of your head sometimes, and understand the real situation, what's going on, and listen to your heart and not your head in some of those situations. So if you could, Divya, if you could leave behind one thing that somebody can do tomorrow or today, and I want to plant a seed. You actually told me that off camera. Networking. Can you double click on that for a second, on women's networking?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that is so important. We hesitate to reach out. We hesitate to connect with other people. Networking is not just exchanging cards and, getting to know somebody and ask them for favors. Networking is understanding what they stand for, what are their values, what value do they bring to the table, so that when you need to build a team or you need to reach out, you know who to connect with. And I think networking is so important. I think men do that really well. For some reason, women not so much. But I would say if there is one thing that I would tell myself, 20 years ago, would be start networking, start getting to know people, really their authentic self, and genuinely be interested in people. Because the world is a small place, especially the workforce is a small place. Everybody comes back in touch in a few years. Even if you don't work with them for a few years, you always see the same people around. And knowing who they are, understanding them, and having that connection will really help you in the long term. So I would say yes, networking. If you only had to do one thing, networking.
And I believe you're going to leave some resources behind so people can reach you, and we'll make that available on the additional support links on this thing. Is there, and you mentioned you have a flyer for that. So is there anything you want to mention about how they can reach you on camera, so they can click on websites to go there?
Oh, absolutely. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always open for new connections, because I firmly believe networking is important. So I will be part of your network. Absolutely. We do have the podcast, which is extremely useful resource. You have all these great women leaders talking about how they have overcome different challenges, and it's available on all podcast platforms. It's called Woman to Woman. And of course, we'll provide links. So check those out. And we're always open for feedback, and reach out if you need to connect with anybody who has been our guest. More than happy to connect.
Super. Well, thank you so much, Divya. Really appreciate your time tonight and the wisdom you impart on our team at Forsys. And here we are on celebration for Women's Day 2022, Breaking the Bias.
Breaking the Bias. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Great.
Bye-bye.